Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be the master of ceremony and the moderator for this event. My name is Sukma Kirani Agna, and I am going to guide you throughout this event. I would like to welcome the Honorable Chairperson Committee, Nicole O'Malley, the Honorable Chairperson of the Organization of Beneath the Boardwalk, Donna Anderson, the Honorable Guest Speaker for today's occasion, Ramit Sethi, and all of the distinguished participants. I'm expressing on behalf of the committees and the members of the Beneath the Boardwalk organization appreciation and thank you for your willingness to take some time off your busy schedules to join us today. We hope that you can learn a lot from this event. Life Skills 101, The Key to be Financially Free, is a seminar about introducing the tips and the information about the skills we need to survive in the real world. For today's event, we'll discuss one of the branches of life skills, which is to be financially free. This event will provide the detailed information and the tips regarding about some misconceptions about money and how to treat them ideally to reach the desirable approach to financial freedom. Let me read the rundown for this event. The first is opening. The second is opening remarks by the Chairperson Committee, Nicole O'Malley. The third is opening remarks by the Chairperson of Beneath the Boardwalk organization, Donna Anderson. And the fourth is keynote speech by Ramit Sethi. And the fifth is Q&A section. And the last is closing. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to listen to the opening speech delivered by the Chairperson of Beneath the Boardwalk organization. Please welcome Mrs. Donna Anderson. Thank you, Anya. First of all, I want to thank the speaker, the New York Times best-selling author Ramit Sethi, for willing to share your expertise to everyone in this room. I would also like to thank the audiences for willing to attend this event from the bottom of my heart. I would also like to thank the committees of this event for putting their hard work into this event. And I hope that this event will get you certain knowledge about financial freedom. Thank you. Please enjoy the event. Thank you, Mrs. Donna Anderson, for the opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to listen to the opening remarks delivered by the Chairperson of this events committee. Please welcome Mrs. Nicole O'Malley. Thank you, Anya. I'm not going to be long. I just want to express that we are honored to have the New York Times best-selling author Ramit Sethi in our seminar today. I would also like to express thankfulness for the audiences to attend this event. Also, huge appreciation for the committees of this event as they're putting their blood, sweat, and tears for this event. Without you all, this event won't be established. Please enjoy the event and the snacks. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Nicole O'Malley, for the opening remarks. Before we're going to the next section, I'm requesting everyone in this room to mute your cell phones, and if you got some questions, please write them down in the question cards in your goodie bags and pass them to the end of the aisle so that the committees will collect them before the Q&A section. We're moving to the next agenda, that is to hear the keynote speech delivered by the founder of IWillTeachYouToBeRich.com and the New York Times best-selling author for his book I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ramit Sethi.
I decided years ago to take my college scholarship money and invest it in the stock market because I thought that's what everybody was doing in 1999, 2000. I lost half my money and I realized I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. So I started learning about money, and at the same time I was learning about psychology. And over time I basically got really interested in learning how to change my own behavior with money, with careers and with negotiation and all kinds of parts of self-development. So I started a blog called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Ended up writing a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which became an instant New York Times bestseller. And now we have 20 different courses on money, business, psychology, and careers, all different parts of living a rich life. Do you ever remember any conversations that your parents had about money when you were growing up? And what did that mean to you? So growing up in that family environment, the messages that you are receiving are, it's bad to spend a lot of money on things. If I spend a lot of money, I'm probably getting ripped off. And frugality or low prices is the best value of all. Now imagine for people who grew up, I'm sure there are a lot of people watching and listening to this, they're like, oh, my mom and dad said that every day. Or phrases like, we don't talk about money in this family. Or easy come, easy go. Those things carry with you for 20, 30, 40 years. And suddenly you're going to buy a car and you really want one type of car, which you love, but you say, you know, I don't know, I should probably get the cheap one, the one that you will hate every day for the next 10 years while you drive it, but you saved an extra $700. Why? You just think that you did a rational analysis. Really, if you trace it back, it's the phrase you heard when you were 8 years old with your parents. So now I don't want to be living the life of what I was learning at 8 years old. I want to be rewriting my financial story now. So I added that to the book. And for everyone listening, if you've ever thought about your own money behavior and you've ever wanted to have a magnifying glass on why do I spend money this way? Or how come I can't seem to stop feeling guilty about spending? You will find the answer. The most classic thing is don't spend money on lattes. Okay, everyone, first of all, don't worry, everyone watching and listening, I'm not gonna tell you to cut back on lattes. Buy as many lattes as you want. This is a fundamental misconception that if you cut back on $3 or $5 every single day, that somehow magically 200,000 years in the future, you're gonna have enough money to live your rich life. First of all, who wants to live like that? Second of all, if you run the math, that's not even that much money anyway, $3 a day. And third, it simply doesn't work. People buy more coffee than ever. I wake up in the morning, I want coffee. What they ignore is that you can focus on 5 or 10 big wins in life. Get a good job, negotiate your salary. Invest every single month automatically. Make sure you have a solid credit score. Just get 5 to 10 things right. You'll never have to worry about the cost of appetizers or lattes again. What I want people to do is to decide what their rich life is and then use the money to fuel that. And half the battle is really getting congruent with yourself and saying, what do I want? Maybe I need to dream bigger on some of this stuff because I've been playing small, but some of this stuff I just don't care about, so I'm gonna get rid of it. When it comes to money, so many of us dream small and we play small. So we spend our time debating about lattes. We worry about a small amount of debt. But when was the last time we actually lived a life of imagination where we said, hey, what if I had $25,000? What would I do with it? And if you have never even thought about that for 5 seconds, then how are you ever gonna know what's exciting to you with money? And that's why most of us dread money. We don't wanna talk about it. It's always something that at the end of the month, we look at our bills, oh God, I guess I spent that much. I wanna flip that because I Will Teach You to Be Rich is about saying, hey, money can be exciting. Let's start with what I wanna do. I wanna take a trip to Thailand. I wanna stay in an amazing place. I wanna take a food tour. Great, let's start there. And when you start with what you want, then you can work your way backwards to, all right, how do I get there? But if you're stuck in latte land and you're stuck saying, I shouldn't spend money on this and I shouldn't do that, you're never gonna get out of it. Okay, first of all, I love talking about making more. Do you know why most personal finance experts never talk about earning more? They don't know how. Yeah. That's as simple as that. That's why this is a whole part of the equation is missing in money. All they talk about is cutting back. I'm like, what about the other side of the table? You can earn more. So I have chosen to focus. Yes, I manage my expenses, but when it comes to managing, I basically spend the same amount on most things, except I have 2 areas that I tend to overspend on them. One is travel and one is clothes. Those are my 2. So I know that if I'm within these parameters, it kind of flags it red or green. Aside from that, everything else is like pretty much taken care of. The point I'm making is ask yourself, what is the thing that I love? And what if I doubled my spending on it? Well, in order to do that, which would give you joy, you probably have to cut back on the things you don't really care about. what is your debt payoff date? What that means is, what is the exact month that your debt is going to be paid off? If you know that answer, you're in really good shape, even if it's 5, 10, 15 years from now, because it means you have a plan and you're automatically paying it off. But of course, the vast majority of people don't. They live under a cloud that's, I'm in debt, some of them think that it's existential and they have $3,000 of debt. I'm like, you could pay that off in a couple of months. It's not that big of a deal, or maybe 6 months. Some of them have significant amounts of debt. But the commonality is, if you just have this dull, throbbing pain in the back of your head, oh, debt, suddenly you start to identify yourself like that. You follow people on Twitter who are like, write these really depressing things about macro economy and there's no way millennials are ever going to get out of debt. You read subreddits where they think that they talk about everyone being in debt. And worst of all, you don't make a plan. What I want people to do is go to a debt payoff calculator. You can Google it. Put in your amounts. You would be surprised that probably 80% of the people I know who are in debt don't even know how much they owe. So step one, find out how much you owe. Step two, plug it into a calculator. You might discover that paying an extra $20 or $50 a month can cut that down by years. And then three, once you have a plan, it's like, you have a big sigh of relief. Now, if you want to take an extra job, or you want to negotiate your rates, or you want to do X, Y, Z, you can affect that plan. But until you actually have a plan, you're just sitting here like, oh, this is really depressing. And that is the worst place to be.
Thank you, Mr. Ramit Sethi, for the keynote speech. So, in conclusion, to be financially free, we have to change our belief related to money when we grew up, to be earning focused, to dream big regarding about money, to essentially have a good relationship with money, to set priorities and don't spend something we reckon unnecessary, and the last one is to acknowledge the amount and the deadline of our debt. Last but not least, we're moving to the Q&A section. I will pick 2 questions to be answered directly by the Mr. Ramit Sethi himself. Here is the first question. How to raise salary? Now, I will give the time for Mr. Ramit Sethi to answer. Please.
A better way is to be really strategic about it. So here's a quick suggestion on how you can get large raises. And this works very well. I will routinely be walking down the street in New York. People will come up to me, they're like, I got a $16,000 raise because of what you taught me. So this stuff works, but the magic is in the details. So what you do, you send an email to your boss, you say, I would love to discuss some of the projects I'm working on, and I'd love to get some time with you. Okay, so you walk in and you talk to your boss, you say, here's what I'm working on. I wanted to kind of sync up on my role. My first question is, what can I do to be a top performer? Your boss might be a little confused. They might say this or that. It doesn't really matter what they say. You need to just simply go back to your key message. What does it take to become a top performer? Because I want to exceed expectations in my role. So by the end of that meeting, you're going to have 3 or 4 crisp things that you walk out with. Write them down. For example, you need to boost conversion from 10 to 12%. You need to hire XYZ person and you need to do X, whatever. Write it down and say, you know what? These sound great. I'm really excited about them. Now, if I hit all these goals, I'd like to discuss a compensation adjustment, but let's deal with that later. First, I want to focus on this. By the way, I'm going to help you, my boss, exceed your goals. Let me take it on. Great. So you walk out, you think about how you're going to execute on that. You send an email saying, here's what we talked about, compensation adjustment discussion later, but for now, I just want to work on these. And the time period for this is typically like 6 to 12 months. So you're sending an email every 1 to 2 weeks. Here's what we talked about. Here's an update. Now, let's assume that you hit those goals. If you don't hit those goals, then maybe you don't deserve a raise. But if you do, you set up another meeting. Here we are 6 months later. I'd like to sit down again and update you on the goal. You walk in, you say, 6 months ago, we talked about X, Y, and Z. Well, I'd like to show you a couple things. I'm really happy. Smiling. Boom. You talked about 10 to 12%. We actually have a confirmed 13.3%. I'm so happy. You talked about hiring 1 person. We actually were able to hire 2 people. We've got a 3rd on deck. You talked about blank, boom. The boss is just like loving it. You're giving each other pats on the back. Great. You say, you know what? The other thing we discussed was a potential compensation adjustment. So I'd like to discuss that now. Boss getting a little nervous. Whoa, what's about to happen? But the boss has been updated along every 2 weeks, so they know it's not a surprise. Now you pull out your salary research, which you pulled from salary.com. You say, based on my role, I'm currently paid 58. For my role, it looks like I should be paid between 63 and 67. I'd like to have an adjustment based on my performance of exceeding these goals to $67,000. Boss is probably going to come back and say, look, I can't do 67. That's above your current pay grade, but you have done a great job. We can talk about 63. Okay, so first of all, you just made $5,000. But now you can have some negotiation. You can use some of my videos on how to actually go through this. But you walked out taking a proactive role in your career. You set a goal with your boss. You confirmed it every step of the way. And then you walked in and said, this is what I'm worth. That is how you negotiate. You will watch your career soar.
Thank you, Mr. Ramit Sethi, for answering the question. Now we're moving to the next question, which is said, can you give some suggestions to be a successful freelancer or a businessman? Now I will give the time for Mr. Ramit Sethi to answer. Please.
There's like 3 ways to really grow your business. You can get more customers, you can raise the average order value, or you can increase the purchase frequency. That's like a very different way of looking at growing your business, because most people only focus on one thing. The classic thing, I know a lot of creatives, photographers, writers, etc., and they just go through this, it's not even feast or famine. It's like famine, maybe get a little morsel, and then back to famine. They're constantly dealing with low value clients. So they're like getting $400 here or $4,000 there, and they just like they spend all their time just like chasing. It's horrible. Getting more clients is just gonna put you in the same position unless you radically increase it, unless you find a way to 2x, 3x, 5x. So think about what you need to change. So what I would say is, if you're in a creative industry, know that there are people charging 10 times more than you. Go find them. Look at what they do, and don't scoff. Don't disparage them. Instead, get curious, D to C. Why is this wedding photographer able to command $15,000? What do they do differently? Let me look at their website. Let me look at the way they talk about their services. Let me see what they offer.
Thank you, Mr. Ramit Sethi, for answering the question. Ladies and gentlemen, the event is reaching its end. I would like to express gratitude and thankfulness for the speaker, Mr. Ramit Sethi, for lecturing us until the very end of this event, and to the audience for paying good attention each minute. We hope that you find this seminar informative and helpful. I, as the Master of Ceremony, apologize if there were any inappropriate miswordings. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.